A swastika at a church. That is what we've come to in America today, where people are tagging up churches with swastikas. We've got the senior pastor of that church that happened to. It's the Ark Church in Redlands. He's a warrior. He loves America. He loves the Lord. He loves his community, and he's standing up for truth and righteousness. Very pleased to have him with us today, Pastor Kevin O'Connor. Pastor Kevin, thanks for being here with us.
Tim Thompson, thank you. It's a privilege to be with you. And I want to especially thank your Inland Empire Family PAC. What you guys did for all three candidates when they were running from our church for the school board made the difference. Your rallies, all the financial support, all the things that you guys came alongside gave them the ability to know that they were legitimate. And it made a difference. 2 out of 3 made it to the school board, and that's why I'm here today, because of all the changes that are going on at the school board, because Christians are moving into the community to make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, it was our pleasure, obviously, and it's obviously our pleasure when we see them winning, because it's what we're supposed to do, and stand for truth and righteousness, and really, get involved in this process that we are blessed to live in. We look at America being a constitutional republic, and you have a thing called local control, and people have forgotten about that. So it's very important to take back that local control and exercise that local control, and that's exactly what those 2 candidates and now school board members are doing. And you've been a massive part of that, and as a massive part of that, you've seen what happens when you stand up for truth and righteousness. You've been doing this for a long time now. You've been just a warrior of a pastor, standing for truth and righteousness. And it's obvious because when it comes to people like you, I don't know that there's any middle ground. I think people either love you or they hate you. And you look at the life of a believer, that really is kind of how it's supposed to be, isn't it? Jesus says they hated me, so they're going to hate you. So there's a contingency of the population in the Redlands area that does hate you because you're standing for truth and righteousness.
It's very interesting. They want to brand you when you're standing up for truth, and one of the brands that the opposition brought at the last 2 board meetings, especially because they heard somehow they got word that at the end of a service several weeks back, just in closing, I said, guys, I want to be at the school board. We need many of you to come. If you'd like to know more about it, please contact the church. And they took that segment, they made it sound like that, and they had 100 people out there with signs saying, the white nationalist hate church is showing up at the school board meeting. Now, yes, white hair, white face, but our church is so interdenominational. We actually have a service for those that speak the Urdu language that want to learn it younger. Sadrak has been under me for 7 years, and Bangladesh, India, and Pakistani, and besides all the other nationalities are there. We have people from El Salvador, from of course, Mexico, Brazil, from Korea, South Korea, that is, and from Vietnam and China. All these are families within our church. And that's what showed up at the school board.
Yeah.
I was the only white guy, but when you look at the opposition, they actually pretty much look more of what they're painting us to be. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. White liberal woman.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pretty much.
Okay, you said it, and I agree.
That's pretty much what I see at these. And if there is a white male, there is usually a beta male.
Yeah.
Just a disgusting excuse for a man, in my opinion. Not a strong man. Yeah. So, because strong men are doing what you're doing. Strong men are standing up to protect our young girls, to make sure that they're not put in a position that is unsafe for them, let's say in sports, something that you and the school board now has stood up for. Tell us about that.
Well, it was just on April 22nd, it came to a vote, the swing vote with our 2 candidates, Candy Olson and Jeanette Wilson. The chairman of the board voted that biological boys will no longer be playing in sports with girls and that. And so it was exciting to see that, but that also brought about the earlier 2 weeks before that, when we brought all 4 subject matters of no gay flag, don't hide, if my child is trying to change their name or wanting to change their gender at school, don't hide it from the parents, get the porn out of the out of the library, and no boys and girls sports. All four of those is when we got the swastikas. And, you come from boards, from the school board, and then the next day you drive to church and you see these signs that you guys have pictures of on our main sign, the swastika. And then he did both sides of the parking lot, and then our sidewalk, he painted that. And of course, you know what? The media was not friendly to us at all.
Yeah. You look at Hitler and what an awful human being he was. And if people would study history and know what he went through to pick that symbol as the symbol that he would use, because symbols have an effect on people.
Sure.
How did you feel when you pulled up to your church building and saw these swastikas on your building?
At first I went, because, you and I, we've met during the pandemic, and you came to our church for a town hall and different things. And at that time that we were having boulders, not rocks, boulders. I don't know how they could throw them, but we had them on video throwing boulders through our doors. I just, in my heart, I went, the demons are mad, and the demons always strike back in that. So I felt sad and if we're really honest, for that Sunday coming up, many of our young families stayed home and watched online to see if any other retribution was going to happen, And so you always walk that tightrope of fear and faith, and you can never make a decision based on, what will someone else do? You got to base it on truth and what God is calling us to do. But I thought right then, oh no, I remember, but just like in the pandemic, many people came to our church that wasn't a part of our church the last several weeks, because they said, we are so glad you stood up and your church, because they televised the school boards, and people watch. And we had probably more families that came, young families, than the ones that stayed home to see if everything was going to be safe. And those are starting to realize this is, again, just we've used the term, it's a cultural war, but it's actually a spiritual war.
Right.
And the demons play dirty.
Right. Oh, yeah, for sure. I think about the words of Jesus. When Jesus said, "Blessed are you when people revile you, persecute you, and say all manner of wickedness against you falsely for his name's sake. Blessed are you." And I know this is true in my life. I'm going to assume it's true. And based on what you just said, it sounds like it's true, is when they attack the way they attack and say that these wicked things, like you're a white Christian nationalist, and which you look at your church and the melting pot that it is. Yeah. Clearly, it's just not. That doesn't characterize your church properly. If you're a melting pot, you aren't a white Christian nationalist church. When they say these things and when they attack the way they do, what ends up happening is the church tends to grow. The church tends to prosper. They think they're harming us, and yet it turns out for our blessing. Do you see that true in your life?
Oh, definitely. And one of the key things, it's so funny, they take terms and they make them sound evil. To be a nationalist is a very good thing. Right. The globalist is where the Antichrist and the lawless one's going to come and take place. And so many people that are coming to our church, they like that we know how to set boundaries. So a nation sets its boundaries, and our nation was founded under God, and the boundaries were set. And those that are coming, watch what they do. It's so much Marxism in this. At school, they try to separate the children from the parents. And so the parents are kept in the dark. What's happening with their child there at school? The separation of children from parents is the first way of controlling the children, and then they'll control society by controlling our children. So it's very global in what they're doing. So they make nationalists sound nasty, but it's the globalists that want to take away our distinction that God's given us, and we're not going to let it happen.
Right. Yeah. When you look at anybody with a globalist mindset, you have to ask yourself, what spiritual force wants to tear down all the borders and control the entire world? Mm-hmm. That's the spirit of Antichrist. Yeah. And so, and we look at, in the book of Acts, when Paul was up on Mars Hill, what did he say about God? He said that God, from one seed, from one blood, created all of mankind, and he he's the one that determines the boundaries of their habitation. Borders are God's idea. So you're right. This is a Marxist idea of dividing people, finding every way to divide, and the left knows this. If you can control the children, you'll control that next generation.
Right.
And that's why they're after our kids.
And that's what the issues, the four issues that we're dealing with, they don't know the boundaries to keep a child's innocence. When they're wanting to read in kindergarten and first grade books that have to deal with sexuality, and the parents don't, they have to find out about it and opt their kids out or whatever, but then the kids go, well, why can't I be with the rest of the kids? And so they're flipping a switch and sexualizing school and kids so early. And you've been a pastor for a good long time too. You know this. Once a child is sexualized, you've changed the direction of their life.
Right.
And it is hideous what happens to a child instead of having those years of innocence. The things that we wanted to be removed from this library, as you look at the 9 books and the porn that's in there, as a married man in my 20s, I didn't know some of the things there. And that's what they're wanting kids to know, and ignite all the stuff that's going to destroy their very soul.
Right. You had told me a story about a 9-year-old child that was there at the school board meeting when you guys were talking about this. Share it with our audience today. Share with us about that.
Once the vote came through, it was like the demons came out, and they were ripping their face, pulling at their clothes, screaming no. But there was a public time for a short time after the vote, and a mom brought her little girl up. She was 9 years of age. She had this little cute, dress on and a vest, and just looked adorable. And I'm sitting in the front. I go, oh, isn't this sweet? And she gets up and she says to the school board, she says, why do you hate my friends? I like my friends being able to play in sports with me. If they look like a girl, they can play with us, because they say they are girls and they're our friends. Why do you have such hate? And the whole auditorium there of the opposition, the decorum is you're not allowed to give a standing ovation. They gave this little 9-year-old a standing ovation, high fives, and she was the little princess, and she felt so empowered. They're indoctrinating her that she's going to be the hero of their future movement there. And that still grieves me now.
Yeah, just hearing that, I ache inside for that child. I can't help but to think of the words of Jesus, better that a millstone be tied around your neck and you be drowned in the sea than to cause one of these little ones to stumble. And that is the epitome of causing a little one to stumble. At 9 years old, when any 9-year-old, they want to have people applaud them. They want to have that type of attention. They're giving her this attention, and they're causing her to believe that sin is okay. They're causing her to believe that celebrating it is the way to go. So they are indoctrinating this child to go against what God would have, and it just makes me sick inside for her. And there are things that she just doesn't understand, and the adults know this. There are things she doesn't understand. Right now, 9 years old, sure, you play with boys and they think that, they're girls. Is it going to seem like everything's fair? Probably at 9. But in just a couple short years, something's going to happen that's going to turn things different. And that's a thing called puberty. Yeah. And when a young boy goes from 9 to 13, and now his bone structure comes into that bone structure of a man. His muscular system develops the way God designed it to develop. It will no longer be fair. And at that point will now be dangerous for a girl to play against that boy. It will be dangerous for it. It creates an unsafe and an unfair environment for our young girls. And that is something that 9-year-old doesn't understand. But again, the adults in the room, they do know this, and they're willfully ignorant of it. Yeah, they know it, but they're going, oh, no, we're just going to ignore that. No. This is the reality. Men are stronger than women. God created it that way. If they don't like it, go talk to God. But it is the reality, right?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And what you're saying is sad in this way. When you're igniting and sexualizing a classroom in all these different ways, it's the boys that they don't know what to do with that sexuality. And older boys, 9 to 13 are going to attack the younger girls, thinking that it's okay because of what they show in the one book. It actually shows a young boy naked, and it makes it look like a cartoon. And it on this side, how to have safe sex with a girl, and on this side, how to have a safe sex with a boy of your own gender. And they make it look like a cartoon.
Yeah.
And like this is normal, and yet it's pornography, and they're stealing the minds and the innocence of these kids. And that's why there's way back for so long you'd say, okay, one out of so many girls are going to be molested. Now one out of so many boys are that has been continued to get closer and closer and closer, that we're almost to 1 out of 2. It's still 1 out of 3 girls in that, but now we're down below 1 out of 5 boys in that. What's happening? We are giving them tools and things that they don't know what to do with, and they're thinking this is the way life is lived. And they're destroying the future of our children.
Yeah, it's hard, it's difficult to watch. We think about our responsibility as Christians. Certainly, as a pastor, you're stepping up and you're doing what God's called you to do. We are the salt of the earth, the light of the world. Salt is a preserving agent. Light is a revealing agent. So you've been standing up for truth and righteousness for many years now. You've been exposing. Think about Ephesians 5:11. We have no part in the wicked deeds done in darkness. We rather what? Expose them. So you've been doing this. This attack on your church took place, and there's a couple of elements I want to discuss. Number one is the response from the media, but I also want to talk about the response from the other pastors in your area. Let's start with the media, because the media definitely mischaracterized you. Talk to me about your experience with ABC7, owned by Disney. What took place with that?
They interviewed me for 20 minutes, and I gave all 4 areas that we were talking about. And here's how they did a 20-second report showing the church with its signs with the swastikas, and says there was a contentious school board meeting when the church showed up looking to ban books from the library. And as you can see, they have now been tagged, and the police are treating it as a hate crime. And so they made it sound like we were Nazis banning books. We never used the word banning books. Sure. I actually told them I love literature, and what I want to ban is pornography, that children... I've dealt with so many men that have problems with pornography. I want to ban it for everybody, right. It robs the soul for men and women. And ABC just... It was fraudulent what they do.
Well, what you were telling me is you even told them ahead of time, we aren't banning books. That's not what we're trying to do. And then they go and report they're there to ban books. This is a talking point of the left. It is something Gavin Newsom used against my area. I'm down here in Temecula, California, and we did similar things here, getting the school board to lean on the conservative side, try to stop pornography from being put into the eyes of the innocents. And what did Gavin Newsom say? Oh, they're trying to ban books. Yeah. No, we're not. It's a weird thing to me that we have to tell other adults that we don't want pornography placed in the eyes of our children, but that is where we're at, and that is what we say. And I think we need to do that unapologetically. We aren't sorry about the fact that we don't want this in front of our children, and I think any man who wants that in front of, or woman for that matter, that wants this in front of children, that person's got a serious personal issue that they need to deal with. I want to make sure our audience knows this. There is an exemption in the California state law for school district employees. Yeah. So if you or I go to a park, let's say, and you and I have pornography, and we want to share these pornographic images with children, we will be arrested. Yeah. And rightfully so. Yeah. But if you're a school district employee and you're doing this under the guise of education, well, now you're exempt from California State Penal Code. You're not going to be arrested. I just, for the life of me, don't understand how that's even a thing, but that is where we're at, and we need to stand up against these things. So you're mischaracterized by the media, and then area pastors try to give some sort of show to come alongside you, but what was it that they did?
Well, we only had, Redlands was actually for many, many years known as the City of Churches. before the pandemic, we used to do with 6 other churches, we used to do a day called Bless Redlands, and we do projects everywhere, whether it's cement projects and boys' homes and different things, foster homes, the schools, we did paint jobs. We would work all year long and come together as churches to do that. Only 4 churches called us after the swastika, and they all said, can we help change your sign or do something in that realm? And I said, no, just bring some of your people or come and declare your church stands also for children's innocence, quit sexualizing the classroom, and these 4 issues come alongside. And they go, oh, we don't do that. We don't do that. And here's what I've been seeing this, and in Zechariah chapter 12, verse 4, it says that in the last days there's going to be a curse placed on the enemies of God and enemies of Israel. I put this always towards the opposition because it's so obvious there. But as I was sitting here, I was thinking, is it possible that the pastors don't realize if you don't stand for truth, then you're not standing for God? And what the curses are that it says will come on them comes out of Deuteronomy 28:28. Is it possible there are some pastors that have confusion of heart? That's the first one. Yes, we love the LGBTQ people that are blinded by all this crazy radical agenda. And we know Jim Dolman, who God rescued out of that and is in 70 world countries, changing the whole narrative of how God can set you free and truly be free is so important. But I wonder if how many pastors have this curse being placed on them that they're confused in their heart. The second curse is madness, and it's a spiritual connotation. Madness in your thinking, upside down thinking that, well, we just love, and they pervert the gospel that it's only love, that Jesus would never call anybody out on their sin. And then the third curse is blindness, and it's the blindness to truth. And here, you and I have talked earlier, I was putting it really towards all the radical agenda people there, but could it possibly be even within the church leadership of pastors that don't see clearly we have a mandate in these last days to be, like you said, the salt and the light. Mm-hmm. There it is.
Yeah.
And they're not stepping up.
They're not, and there's even people, that say they're part of a church. You told me a story about a woman who says, I'm, a teacher at a church that's an LGBTQ church. Well, let's be really clear. There is no such thing as an LGBTQ church. The church is part of the body of Christ. Mm-hmm. As a person who's a part of the church, you have the Spirit of God in you. You've submitted yourself to the authority of God, yep, to His Word. If we're going to follow Jesus and have a life of love, let's define what love is. And I've told my kids this when I was raising them. Whoever owns the definition wins the argument. Yeah. And the left knows this, so they're trying to own the definition of love. Well, let's go to the Bible, right, and let's see what the Bible says about love. Jesus says, if you love me, keep my commandments. Yeah. Or in another area, he says, if you love me, obey me. Right. Now, if you're living in a sexual lifestyle that is outside the confines of marriage between one man and one woman, that is outside of his commandment, and that means you aren't loving God. Right. And if you're not loving God, you're not going to love people properly. You can't love people properly unless you learn to love God properly. Mm-hmm. So he says, you love me, obey me. We only have about a minute left. What is your message to the pastors?
To the pastors, we cannot be willing to give in to the spirit of fear. You won't ever reach your congregation or change your community. The prayer is, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. The only way the kingdom of God gets established before Jesus returns is that we, the light, have to walk faith, not fear. And if the pastors are walking in fear, their people are running in fear. And so they need to step up and be men and women of faith. For the ladies teaching the younger ladies how to have this faith, whatever happens. This is why the older generation has to step up too in the churches, because they've seen so much in life, and they shouldn't be, tossed to and fro from every little wind of crazy doctrine out there. Right. And it's going to get crazier. So pastors, step up and be men of faith.
Amen to that. Pastor Kevin O'Connor, you have certainly been an example of that to so many people. We appreciate you coming on the program today. Appreciate all that you're doing there in Redlands and that entire region. It really is valuable to the kingdom of God, and I want to thank you for that. How can people connect with you? How can they attend your church there in Redlands?
Well, they can find us on the corner of Citrus and Grove at 1307 East Citrus Avenue. We have a Wednesday night Waymaker service at 6:30. We have two identical services Sunday morning at 8:30 and 10:30. And they can come to church. They can find us on YouTube, on Telegram, on Twitch, on Rumble, Facebook, all those things. If they put in the ARC Church of the Nazarene, we're a Nazarene church, 114 years in that community. We're a family church, only between 250 to 300 people, but we teach them how to have family dynamics and how to have a biblical worldview as a family. And so that's our mission in Redlands.
Awesome. Well, highly recommend everybody connect with you. Pastor Kevin O'Connor, thank you again for being with us.
Thank you, Tim. It's been a pleasure to be with you.
Thank you. And I want to just encourage you all, make sure you connect with Pastor Kevin O'Connor, the Arch Church in Redlands. An amazing man of God, an amazing community. I've been out there to his church multiple times. He's got just a great church family out there. I want to remind you, go over to ourwatch.com, subscribe, become one of our watchmen. We would really appreciate that. And if you do that, one of the benefits is you get early entrance into our Wednesday night lives and Friday night lives that we do. Our next one coming up is with Rabbi Jonathan Cahn on May 21st. You are not going to want to miss that. So more information on that, ourwatch.com. Again, if you subscribe, become a watchman, you get in early to that, and it is surely going to be packed that evening. It's going to be a great night with Rabbi Jonathan Cahn. Please, if you would, share this video out with your friends, your family, your neighbors, and let them know what's going on in the life of Pastor Kevin O'Connor there in Redlands. And we'll see you next time right here on Our Watch with Tim Thompson.